So ADA has tapped into this region between 57.77 cents to 58.98 cents. And this region is the Y wave target, which is this wave here, where I've been tracking a WXY structure to complete the W wave. So right now I am looking at for a retracement to the downside to complete this X wave, where that X wave could potentially reach anywhere between 51.88 cents to 54.89 cents. And if we tap into this region, then I will be looking at for a final push to the upside where we then breach past the local top. And here you can actually see that we've been getting rejected at the 200 DMA. And there is potential for us to retest that 50 EMA. And during the time of recording, that 50 EMA sits at 57.54 cents. And so in order for us to be bullish, then we need to find support at that level and then see that final push to the upside. However, if we get rejected, then it's possible that we are within the X wave and we could then potentially tap into this region here. And I'm intrigued in the recent price action. And so what I'll do is go in the 5-minute chart and see what has actually taken place. And straight away I can see that this move here is made up of a corrective move. However, this move looks to be made up of a impulsive move. And so if I break down what's actually going on over here. So yeah, here it looks like we had a WXY structure that formed, where this was a W wave, this was an X wave, and this was a Y wave. So using a fib tool, I'll check to see if that Y wave met the typical requirements. 57.9 cents. So I'll bring up one more. So yeah, here you can see that the 100% retracement level sits at 58.94 cents. And we ended up reaching 58.95 cents. And so yeah, that move looks to be complete. And then we saw this retracement to the downside, which is typically a 50 to 88.2% retracement of this wave structure. And so here you can see that the 88.2% retracement level sits at 57.86 cents, and the 50% retracement level sits at 58.33 cents. And so we ended up tapping into that region, and then we saw this push to the upside made up of another WXY structure, where this is a W wave, this was an X wave, and this is a Y wave. And so again, using the fib tool, you can see that we tapped into those typical requirements between at 1 to 1.226. In actual fact, we extended beyond the 1.236 retracement level and reached 59.25 cents. And so, yeah, here it looks like we had a bigger WXY structure that formed, where this is a W wave, this was an X wave, and this was a Y wave. So if I remove these fib tools, so that's essentially what ended up playing out. And then we saw this retracement to the downside made up of another WXY structure. So that Y wave would typically reach anywhere between 57.8 cents to 58 cents. And as you can see, we ended up tapping into that region where we ended up reaching 57.9 cents. And then, so it's possible that what we are forming is a bigger WXY structure, where this would then be the W wave, this would be the X wave, and then we see that final push to the upside to complete the Y wave. And what I'd do is target out this Y wave. And in fact, before I do that, this X wave would typically retrace anywhere between 50 to 88.2%. So if I double check to see if that X wave met the typical requirements. And yeah, in actual fact, you can see that the 88.2% retracement level sits at 57.9 cents, and that's exactly the level that we hit. And so yeah, it looks like the X wave is complete, and then we could potentially be within the Y wave. So I'll set up the Y wave target. And so ADA has the potential to reach anywhere between 59.43 cents to 59.8 cents. And so for this to play out, then essentially we need the Y wave to be made up of a WXY structure, where this would be the W wave, this would be the X wave, and then we set a final push to the upside to complete that Y wave. And we know that this X wave again would chase anywhere between 50 to 18.2% of the W wave. So if I bring in the fib tool, and here you can see that the 88.2% retracement level, so it's at 58.04 cents, and we actually went deeper and reached 58.02 cents. And so it will be interesting to see if we see that push to the upside where we could potentially be within a Y wave and tap into this region, or we could see a deeper move. And for that to be the case, then it's possible that we ended up topping off at 59.25 cents, and instead we could be in a retracement to the downside. So if I remove some of this now, so yeah, what we could have is a bigger double XY structure to the downside, where this could potentially be the double wave, this would be the X wave, and then we set a final push to the upside, to the downside rather, where we could see a 1 to 1.226 retracement of the double wave. So ADA could potentially reach anywhere between 57.23 cents to 57.61 cents. So if I mark that out, so we could tap into this region here. And it will be interesting to see if ADA would then be within the X wave to the downside, where this double XY structure will make up the double wave. And then we'll see a retracement to the upside, followed by a final push to the downside, where we then tap into this region here. And so, yeah, these will be the next two key targets for ADA. The bullish target will be this region between 59.44 cents to 59.8 cents. And the bearish one would be anywhere between 57.22 cents to 57.62 cents. So if I go back to the hourly chart, yeah, we could still see that final push to the upside to complete that double wave, and then we could then be in a retracement to the downside to complete that X wave, followed by a final push to the upside to complete the Y wave. But again, we need to find support at the 50 EMA in order for us to be bullish. And here you can actually see that the 50 EMA actually coincides with this target. And so, yeah, it's possible that we actually find support and see a retracement to the upside. And it will be interesting to see if we see a continuation or a further push to the downside where we see a bigger double XY structure that forms. Now, as far as the stochastic RSI goes, you can see that we are within also conditions, and so the bulls could potentially regain control of the market, and it will be interesting to see if that takes place over here where we find support at the 50 EMA, and I see that push to the upside. And if I go in the 4-hour chart, what you can see is we are within overbought conditions, and so we could be slightly bearish, and again, the bears could actually regain control of the market. And so, yeah, anything can happen as things stand at the moment, and so I would be careful if you are trading. But ultimately, these will be the next two key targets. And so, yeah, that's just my update on Cardano ADA. Hopefully you found it useful, and if you did, then feel free to hit that like button, and if you're new, feel free to subscribe. Take it easy, people. Peace.